Today, the jury will hear closing arguments in the trial against Lindsay Clancy. After that, Judge Sullivan will instruct them on the law, and then, after 5 weeks of listening to evidence and testimony, the jury will begin their deliberations. Before all of that happens, though, I want us all to remember what this case has always been about, because somewhere along the way, 3 little children have become supporting characters in what is their story. Cora Clancy was the oldest. She was cautious, but a lot of that came from how deeply she cared about people. Cora wanted to grow up to be a doctor and a mama. She would practice being a doctor by giving her baby brother Callan checkups. She had 2 baby dolls named Caroline and Charlotte, and before Cora was even 2 years old, she could perfectly swaddle them. If she was leaving the house, she would make sure that someone had been assigned to take care of her babies while she was gone. Her preschool teachers remembered her as sweet and amazing, a little girl who was ready for kindergarten. She loved drawing. She loved sparkly dresses and bows. She loved sloths, unicorns, tea parties, and giving presents to people. She loved going to lunch with Nana and Grandpa. She knew everything about princesses, especially Sophia the First. In fact, she loved Sophia so much that at one point she tried to convince her preschool teachers that her own name was Sophia. She had an infectious laugh. She loved skiing, traveling, and spending time with the people that she loved. Most importantly, people who knew her repeatedly described how much she loved her little brothers. And then there was Dawson. He had these big, bold brown eyes that seemed to beam with friendship. He was funny, full of energy, adventurous, mischievous. He loved trucks, construction trucks, fire trucks, tractors. He loved dinosaurs, Paw Patrol, worker guys, and being outside. Apparently, he had this little raspy voice. In the mornings, before anyone even went into his room, Dawson would sometimes just sing or talk out loud to himself. He could find some trouble, but usually whatever trouble he caused was absolutely hilarious. One of the things people remembered most about Dawson was his kindness. He shared his toys. He was incredibly generous for such a little boy. For all the love that he received, he somehow always seemed to give even more back. His family used to joke that Dawson was so smart and would become so successful that even if they didn't save enough for retirement, it wouldn't matter. They could just move into Dawson's guest house someday. He was his family's little buddy. Callan was the youngest. His family called him Happy Callan. That's how they remembered him. Happy, easygoing, vibrant, constantly smiling. Callan was the easy third baby who seemed to just adapt to whatever was happening around him. He was a great sleeper, and in the mornings he would wake up and spend a few quiet minutes resting on a shoulder while he was adjusting to the day. He was already sitting up by himself and discovering that independence, grabbing anything he could get his little hands on. Sometimes Callan would sit in his jumper in the background during work calls, happily hanging out while life just happened around him. He had also started saying his first word, Dada, when his dad walked into the room. One of his little end-of-day routines was being swung between his dad's legs while he laughed. He had a way of making bad days better just by being there. Cora, Dawson, and Callan had lives and personalities before what happened to them on January 24th, 2023. I beg you to keep their name the loudest when you talk about this case. This case should have never been about picking the side of an adult. It should have always been about Cora, Dawson, and Callan. As the jury is in the deliberating room, I hope these 3 children are what is on their mind. Of course, the evidence and the testimony that they've heard as well. I don't envy their job, which will begin today. I'll be back after closing arguments and then after the jury has made their decision. But again, please let these children's names be the loudest when you talk about this case. Rest in peace to Cora, Dawson, and Callan.